Well, I'm waiting for the... Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our school board meeting, Medina City Schools Board of Education for July 9th, 2019. If everyone will stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Chambers, roll call.
Mr. Eastwood.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst. Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Thank you.
If I can get a motion to approve the minutes from our June 24th, 2019 regular school board meeting.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
I'll second.
Any Board of Education discussion with any modifications, additions, or deletions? Seeing none. Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any additions, removals, or modifications to our agenda this evening?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sable for Superintendent Communications.
I have two communications this evening. The first is, believe it or not, but we're already looking at the upcoming OSBA conference, where we will have a team of teachers at Waite presenting this year on what they're doing with Wednesday inquiry-based programming. So I'd encourage our board members to put that on your calendars, and Noreen will be reaching out to you with some more detailed information as the date approaches, as well as confirmation of your attendance. But I wanted you to be able to get that on your calendar as soon as possible. The second item, I actually apologize for its late entry to the agenda. This is a result of discussions that occurred last night at City Council's meeting. What the city would like to do in regards to the property transfer or property swap that we've been working with them on for several months is they would like to put the house up for auction. My communications with the mayor today was that I was concerned regarding finalization of the title transfers. The intent would be that the title transfer would be completed within the coming weeks. He had indicated to me that they actually had a special meeting coming up where they were addressing another topic, and their goal was to add that to their agenda. In terms of the school district, you have taken all necessary action for the property swap. We're just waiting for finalization of the title transfer. Where the conversation stemmed from my understanding at City Council, was in terms of restoration of the property. Part of the initial agreement was that we would demolish the house as well as fill in the basement and seed the property. And they wanted to make sure that we were still committed to doing that. I assured the mayor that we were still committed to doing that, as we said from the beginning. If the house is auctioned off, part of what the city would like to include in that auction is that the house would need to be moved off the property to another property within city limits in a timeline of November. And I don't remember the exact day in November, but I know they were looking at November. If that were the case, then the expense left to us obviously wouldn't include demolition of the house, but it would include filling in the basement. So since it was a topic of conversation last night at City Council, I wanted to make sure to update all of you on that information and see if there's any questions or concerns regarding the city technically we won't even own the house anymore. Once the titles are transferred, it'll all be in the city's hands. Our only responsibility will be to fill up the hole once the house is gone.
The only thing, it sounds like a very reasonable approach to the whole scenario. After we have the property and before the house is removed, where's the liability on that? Is that something that, something happens to the house, are we responsible, I'd just like to look into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I can ask Mr. Burkhart to follow up with our attorneys to make sure, but it's my understanding that it won't even be our property at that point. It'll be all under the city's umbrella and their property. So that's one of the reasons why it was important to me to make sure the title transfer was completed.
And I don't know if the quote was accurate or not, but there was a quote about whoever would remove the house would basically, fill in the basement and so forth in the paper today. So if that's the case, that would be nice if we wouldn't have that additional cost, if that could be done at the same time that the basement's demolished. But again, if you're going to check with council just to make sure that it's okay that we do that, if we don't own the property, if we're making improvements on the city's property, since it's not ours at that point. But it would be nice to get the exchange done since we did acquire the property in March. I hate to have this held up for a long period. It was our understanding it was going to move pretty quickly. And I know there's been some survey issues and so forth, but it'd be nice to get it completed. So thank you.
Mr. Chambers?
Thank you. If it please the board, I'd like to discuss the temporary appropriations. We made changes here. As you know, we'll probably be making changes up until September when we submit the final appropriations. The changes are for the high school. They gave us 2 uniform school supply accounts to increase. They also gave us their 200 and 300 accounts. So you could see that the high school on the 200 accounts for a large portion. They're going up from $25,000 to $239,000. And then on the 300 accounts went up roughly $110,000 itself. We also added in the auxiliary service funds. These are at 65% of what they were given here the past year. The state will not give the auxiliary services any monies until the end of August. So we're looking to allow them to create purchase orders so that they could get their supplies here before the school year begins. Questions? Okay, now on to the financial summaries. The district bank account decreased by $4.3 million in June from $276.2 million. This is $2 million below last year at this time. General fund revenues were below last June by $2.5 million. Real property, public utility, personal, state foundation, property tax allocation, and other funding sources all account for this decrease. The general fund expenditures were above last June by $2.9 million. Personal services, benefits, purchase services, and supplies contributed to the increase, which is all part of the strategic plan that we're running under. Sales tax fund is down to $3.19 million. The district spent approximately $10,000 and had a correction expense of $5,000. The largest portion was to the Northrop Connector Trail, and the district ended the fiscal year below last year's fund balance by $172,000. The Recreation Center Capital Fund is down to $381,000. District received $5,000 from the city and spent $225,000. The $225,000, most of it is for the roof replacement. That is a portion of it at this point. What we're doing is we're billing the city as we go with the roof replacement so that our funds will, well, as you can see, we're down to $380,000, so that we'll have funds in order to complete the roof replacement itself. The district has received $135,000 in investment income in June. The total collected for the current fiscal year is roughly $600,000 above last year, and the district ended the fiscal year at 96.6% of the last 2 fiscal years combined. The district general fund true days cash is estimated to be 254 days, and this is down from May by 18.01 days and down from last year by 19.18 days. So as you can see, we are spending down. It may not be a lot at this point, but we don't anticipate doing a lot at one time. It'll be over the 5-year period. Questions? Thank you.
Any board communications? I have one. If nobody has any. Again, a lot of times our treasurer and his duties go unnoticed. And a while ago, he received the Clean Audit Award from the state of Ohio, which was much appreciated by all the board members and the community. I received a letter in mid-June, June 19th, from the Ohio Schools Council, from the executive director, Mr. William Zalai. And I wanted to read this verbatim, and it involves our treasurer, Mr. Chambers, for something else that he did that was, made a positive impact, not only for our district, but for others as well. And the letter reads, and I quote, "Dear Mr. Ross, on behalf of the Ohio Schools Council, I wish to express our sincere appreciation to you and your Board of Education for allowing Mr. Dave Chambers the time to participate on our Treasurer and Business Manager Advisory Committee. The suggestions and the feedback that come from this committee have helped the Ohio Schools Council provide beneficial programs to our membership. This committee is a very valuable asset to our organization. The Medina City Schools should be proud of Dave's contribution. I have forwarded a certificate of appreciation to Dave, thanking him for serving on this committee. Sincerely," and it's signed by Mr. Salai, the executive director. So I just wanted to let the community know everything you're doing, because I think it's extremely important, and you are a valuable asset, and we appreciate everything that. And I know you're very humble, and you don't want to, but I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Ross, if I could just jump in real quick too.
Yes, go ahead.
Just it's the summertime, so we're not all as busy with quite the regular activities, but there's a lot of committee meetings and so forth that'll be coming up. I know policy meets here at the beginning of August, and so will the building committee of facilities with Mr. Eastwood. And I'm going to sit through a webinar on the 31st, and probably anybody on the board's welcome to do this as well. Bricker and Eckler, one of the firms that our district uses, is doing a legal update webinar on Wednesday, July 31st from 12 to 1 p.m. And if you didn't get a registration, I'd be happy to share mine with you, but it's a webinar we can sit through that just talks about some of the issues that were in the House bill this year for the budget that would affect districts and things like that. And I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the fall, but some of it's, available now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Skidmore. Anybody else? Okay. Treasurer's action items.
Yes, if it pleases the board. Action item number 1, revised temporary appropriations for the 1920 school year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the revised temporary appropriations. Action item number 2, Treasurer's Report. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the June 2019 Treasurer's Report.
Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's action items?
I'll make a motion to approve the action items of the treasurer.
I'll second.
Board discussion. Hearing none. Any discussion from the community on the treasurer's action items? Seeing none. Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to Mr. Sable and the superintendent action items.
First one is donations, an unusually small list. You can tell it's July. You usually fill up a whole page here. It's recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to the Medina City Schools. And you can see that the bulk of this is for our Sparkle cheerleaders and their new uniforms for the upcoming year. Number 2 is a resolution to increase meal prices. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following increase in lunch prices commencing with the 1920 school year. And that's moving to $3 at the elementary level and $3.25 at the high school. This actually puts us in line with surrounding districts, and it's also the first increase that we've had in at least 7 years. What initiated the need for this is the Food Services Department has been running over budget, and we've had to utilize money out of general funds to support that. So this is to offset those costs. Number 3 is a resolution for membership in Meta Purchasing Cooperative. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Medina City School District's membership in the Meta Purchasing Cooperative. And this is working with other districts and agencies to get group pricing, which ultimately leads to lower pricing. And that's an organization that we've been a part of in the past. Textbook adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the following textbooks for the 1920 school year. This is the textbook that was presented at our last regular meeting for American U.S. history. I do want to point out that this book did not sit for 30 days for public review. That is not board policy. That is actually procedure set up by the superintendent to allow adequate access and feedback from the community for textbooks. I am presenting it. We normally do follow that timeline. I'm presenting it early. It's been on view for probably about 15 days at this point. And the reason why is I want to ensure that we have the book available for the beginning of the school year. The book was delayed on getting on the agenda because I did not want to place it on the agenda until we had the actual physical book in hand. The other piece to this is it is an AP book, so our choices in choosing the book are limited and dictated by the AP board. Number 5, agreement with Suburban School Transportation. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the Medina City School District and the Suburban School Transportation Company to provide transportation for Medina City School District students during the 1920 school year. And they really support us with a lot of our special education transportation and our small group transportation. Number 6 is service agreements. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 1920 school year. The first one I want to point out is American Fireworks Company. This is for the fireworks show that our student council has annually put on. So this is not paid for by the district. This is paid for through student council raised funds. The other two are for water management within some of our facilities to make sure that things keep operating smoothly and don't get clogged up. Number 7, several special education service agreements in preparation for the upcoming school year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 1920 school year. These are all agencies that we've had past relations with and contracts with. What adjusts is the students that they will be serving, and that's all dependent upon their individualized education plan. Number 8, we have a field trip. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trip in compliance with Policy 2340 for the 1920 school year. And this trip is actually coming up in another week, and it is a cheerleading camp that our cheerleaders have attended annually. This field trip was added this afternoon as well. This wasn't originally on the agenda. It came through late, which has been addressed. I thought it was important to get it on here, though, that it's a repeat trip That's occurred annually, and it's coming up in a week. Oh, correction on the date. Yes, that would be a long trip, a 4-year trip going back in time. Thank you for catching that.
I did see on the attached submission that they do have the correct dates there.
And last but not least, and the big reason for our meeting tonight and the shift in dates, just so the community or public knows, we do run up to deadlines and timelines in terms of hiring teachers and teachers' abilities to get out of contracts within their current district. And that deadline is July 9th or July 10th, tomorrow. So this allows us to help out some of our new employees or new soon-to-be employees in order to get the best people on board. Going through here, you see that there are 6 or 7 teacher hires on here. These are to replace vacated positions, whether it's through retirement or people leaving. In addition to that, I do want to point out that Daniel Schneider, our soon-to-be new gifted teacher, is here tonight. I had an opportunity to sit down with him yesterday, and what's exciting is bringing in a gifted teacher with experience. Gifted teachers are not easy to come by, so to be able to bring somebody in who's going to really be able to hit the ground running with the programming is really important. In addition, we have the appointments for our curriculum development coordinators as listed. We also have a couple resignations for purposes of retirement. And this is a husband-wife team that has been working for our district. John Hardman is a Medina High School custodian for 18 years, and he will be retiring with his spouse, Sandy, who is a cook at Claggett Middle School. And we wish both John and Sandy all the best and thank them for their service to Medina City Schools. Thank you.
If I can get a motion to approve the superintendent's action items?
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's action items.
I'll second.
Any board discussion?
Just one question real quick. The Suburban Contract, and it didn't occur to me till I was looking through it right now as you were speaking. I looked at the other ones, and it showed the increases or decreases or, and so forth. With that one, is that in line then with what it was last year? And is there a rate schedule that we have for that one?
I believe it is in line with what we've done in the
Okay.
past. We've contracted with Suburban for a number of years.
Okay. Just making sure because the rate schedule, I don't know if that's presented with us, but.
I just wanted to make a comment as well. While everybody is important and we value all of our staff, the feedback I get from time to time about sometimes the gifted classes are underemphasized or we don't seem to have the support sometimes, at least in some people's perspective. So while I see this new face in the room, and I'm very excited about that and appreciative of what's going to happen there. So we appreciate everybody, but I just wanted to say that that's a good thing to see too.
I just wanted to throw out a question. If you could, you've already addressed it, but I didn't quite get all of it. With the textbooks, it's a 30-day period, but we haven't had it for 30 days. So we're going to...
Correct. What the board policy says is that there will be an initial reading of any textbook adoptions by the Board of Education. Following that initial reading by the Board of Education, it's the superintendent's responsibility to set up a system to allow for public and staff review of those materials. What we've historically done as a district is we've allowed those items to be available at our board office through our curriculum department for anybody to come in and review them. That is not part of board policy. That's something set up by district administration. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that it wasn't sitting the normal 30 days like we would do. It's not a violation of policy. It's just a change in procedure due to our timeline.
Any other discussion?
I know it was mentioned last month, but the meal prices, I mean, we don't look lightly on changing that. That was something where, you know, the district assessed and looked where we are in comparison with other districts. And our Angie and the whole meal department, they do a fabulous job of providing healthy meals and doing them at an economic point that is good. And so that's not something that we do without kind of thinking long and hard about it. Do we want to increase the prices or not? And it's time to do it, but we recognize that. So thank you.
Anybody else? Any community discussion on the superintendent's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
No, let me, can I see this? I gotta read it. It's right here. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, moving into public participation. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and your affiliation. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Thank you. With that said, does any member of the community wish to address the school board at this time? Mr. Barron?
Hi, everybody. It's been a while. It's great to
evening.
see you all. Everybody, I'm Skip Barron, 536 North Broadway Street, and I'm speaking tonight representing the Building Blocks 501c3. I'm not sure how much of you have been following the Huntington House that you folks are working with, but it was discussed last night at the Finance Committee and the board meeting. And basically, what I want to talk about right now is simply the who's responsible for taking care of the basement to take away the brick and stone and fill it in. And there were two things brought up last night. The mayor actually had a list of things that the council should consider as far as restrictions and recommendations for the the house, and they did vote, I believe, to auction it off. But again, there were two different proposals. The first proposal was to have whoever bought it be responsible for taking away the stone and filling in the hole, and then planting grass over it. During the discussion, it was brought up that the original agreement called for the the school district, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that was school district's responsibility to do that. And I'm not quite sure what it sounds like that the mayor talked to you about that, and I just wanted to point out that, and if you had any questions, I know Mr. Shields was there last night. I do want to introduce Suzanne Sharp. She's the person that started this. The house was for sale for years, and I don't know how long for years, but I kept driving by and I thought, somebody needs to save this house. And I said, I'm too old to deal with that right now. And Suzanne picked it up, thank goodness, and she's been really busting her, if I'm allowed to say her butt, making this happen, setting up a 501c3 with her own money and really going gung-ho. When I saw that things were going a little slowly, I asked if I could help. And so now myself and my wife are involved with Suzanne, and we're doing our best to save the house, which is incredibly historically important to the community. So we're hoping that we're able to win the auction and get the house and then move it someplace, which we have some spots in mind, and hopefully renovate it with some help from a person who wants to live there, and turn it into a single family owner-occupied home. And this would be our first house that we actually be involved with that, and hopefully we'll look for another house to do the same thing, to find somebody who wants to be involved using some, we call it investment equity instead of sweat equity. But so anyhow, hopefully you'll see us doing lots of good stuff throughout the community over the years, and this would be hopefully our first project. And I'm not sure how you guys, when you go into executive session, will you be discussing the, who's doing what with the basement, or I'm not sure what happened last night at the meeting after the LGBTQ thing. They voted on something, but it was too loud to hear what they actually voted on. So I'm kind of in the dark and on that. So go ahead.
Yeah, we won't be having any discussion in executive session about this. That's why we included it, or I included it in the public section. This is an agreement we did have with the city when we first started discussing the land swap, and we set monies aside to demolish the house and fill in the basement. So at this point, we're just waiting for the title transfer to occur and see what happens with the auction, to see what needs to be done. And we've got some legal follow-up just to make sure when we're going onto the city's property and doing work.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you, guys. Any questions or anything, or get out of your hair?
I have a question for you.
Sure,
Steve.
Ron.
So it's going to go to auction, and then you guys are going to bid on it, actually make a bid on the house.
Yep.
And then if you win that, you're saying then you think you're going to move it?
Yep. That's our plan.
Okay.
We've got a couple of lots in town that we're looking at. It all depends on whether we get the house or not, how we proceed. We were hoping to get the house sooner, but looks like it's going to go to auction. The city decided to go that way. So I'm not sure when that's going to occur. My understanding is in a couple of weeks, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So
Well, good luck.
thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. I got a battle scar from the basement ductwork, so. It's really a low basement. By the way, it's only about this high, so you don't have a lot to fill in.
And I just wanted to quickly clarify too that as a public entity, we can't make a donation to a 501(c)(3). So for us, it would be a matter of our ability to go in there and actually go on the property and do the work.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Any other member of the community wish to address the school board tonight? Seeing none, I would like to make a motion to move into executive session to consider the employment and discipline of a public employee or official.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross,
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood,
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We won't be taking any action when we return, and this was a 38-minute meeting. It's pretty fair to say it's July. Thank you all.